everybody. This is Chris Jerome from the Radical Independent Facebook page, and I'm here with Mike Cantwell, veteran, longtime independent voter advocate involved in different aspects with that, various groups. I know you run a Substack called Independence for America, and that includes a podcast and probably related YouTube and Facebook pages as well. We'll kind of get into that here in a minute. I think I came across you, or your name at least, I don't know, related to some veterans groups. I was kind of going in and out of some veterans groups. Some of them may have been election reform related, I'm not sure, but then your name caught my attention, and then I kind of looked into it, and I said, oh, good, oh, cool, independent voter, proponent, basically. So, Mike, if you don't mind, maybe we could start with a little bit about your background, just kind of give some of how you got involved in things.
Hey, Chris, thanks a lot for inviting me to your podcast and your Facebook page. Really appreciate it. I think we have a lot of things in common. I've been active in the political reform community since about 2017. I joined a group called Unite America and was the DC chapter lead for a while. I then was involved in running for office in 2021. I ran as an independent for the Arlington County Board. I've been involved in other groups like Fair Vote Virginia and Upvote Virginia, which advocate for ranked choice voting. I was part of the team of people who brought ranked choice voting to Arlington, Virginia. A lot of people don't know it if you don't live in this area, but Arlington County, Virginia is one of the smallest counties in America with only 24 square miles, but we have 240,000 people here. So we're really the size of a city. And obviously, right across the river from Washington, D.C., and we have the Pentagon and the Arlington National Cemetery. So other groups I've been involved in, Veterans for All Voters, which I'd like to talk a little bit more about, and also the Forward Party. Since 2023, I've recruited a number of candidates to run under the Forward Party banner. And over the last three election cycles, I've had about two or three that I've helped run their elections and kind of be their campaign consultant or campaign advisor. Also in 2023, I launched the Independence for America Substack and podcast. And my tagline is, I tell the story of state and local independent candidates. And these are, I've deviated that a little bit, but usually it's people who've actually run and won their elections and are serving. So a lot of great stories from, small town mayors or school board members, really inspirational how they got involved in running for office and are now serving. So that's kind of my backstory. But yeah, just dive in and ask me tons of questions. I'm really involved in the political reform movement. I think it's really important. I think our system is very dysfunctional right now. So yeah. I hope people like you and others in this space are part of the solution, not the problem.
It's interesting that you mentioned in your podcast, you talk to independents, but they've already won. And that's probably the trick, because I've had kind of a hard time 2026 going into this year's election. I've kind of reached out to quite a few independents around the country, some of the more senator, high profile ones, but even state legislatures, and not much response. I think the risk reward is high for them, because if they say one wrong thing, it gets out, it hurts them. They take a real chance, especially with a name like Radical Independent. They're probably like, what the hell is this guy doing? But yeah, it's hard to talk to them when they're running. I've found, at least, because I just feel like they're in safe mode and they're trying to be very careful about there's people working, you have jobs, you have money on the line, and they don't want to take any chances, and that's cool. But talking to them once they've won, maybe a better shout. So maybe I'll have to switch my strategy there.
Yeah, it's all about relationship building, and being a veteran and being involved in the Forward Party, I think has been helpful. But the good news is that there's good news and bad news. There's a lot of people in this space now, and I think we're finally getting a little bit of momentum. We still have a long uphill climb, but we really finally have a little bit of momentum. Also, with ranked choice voting, I'm also open primaries. At least I know the people that are involved in it. Yeah, and DC just finally funded open primaries for the future. So that was a big win, and they just had ranked choice voting primary elections. We really need ranked choice voting in the general election, and that's one of the things I really fought hard for in Arlington County. They went the ranked choice voting in the primaries first, but it took a year or two to convince them to have it in the general election. But now we have it in the general election, which is great.
Right. I think that's more common. I know that there's some other states where the DNC or the GOP actually use ranked choice voting in their primaries. And so maybe that's kind of the starting point, and it'll catch on and move more towards the statewide elections and stuff like that. But it's a start. Right. It's growing. But yeah, I'm kind of in touch with some of those groups within my state, and they're doing great work. It's just trying to get the word out, really. So
I try to keep feet in both camps. So I keep my one foot in the political reform space, and organizations like Fair Vote and Veterans for All Voters and Upvote Virginia are really focused on electoral reforms. But then, I also take my hat off and like, hey, I'm going to support this great independent candidate or this great forward party candidate. Like you, though, I'm not a big fan of the duopoly, and I think we have a lot of dysfunction going on. Although I'm not shy to throw out some suggestions on how they can be a little bit more democratic and a little bit more inclusive. So, so I don't know if you saw my article that I wrote in Independent Voter News about, and I think they used the word radical. They changed the title of it, but it's about radical reforms for the presidential primaries. Part of, I'll just give you a quick summary of it, but basically encouraging the political parties do mobile voting for their primaries, and then also have a regional primary system, right? So break it up into 3 or 4 regions, and the primaries would be all the states in that region on one day, and then you have like a month break, and then you have another region. And it'd basically be a 4-month cycle. And I start off the article talking about how Americans are very attracted to fair and open competition, right? So our March Madness, our sports teams, our playoffs, American Idol, even The Apprentice, they're all about this whole brackets and somebody competing and then winning at the end. And the debacle of the Democrats not having a real primary in 2024, and how undemocratic that was, and how everybody's been saying that the primary process is so messed up. Even if you talk about closed or open, but having small unrepresentative states basically deciding who the nominees will be. When I'm talking about Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina and Nevada, those are the first 4 primaries. And so this model that I'm suggesting for the political parties to use, I really do think they would end up helping have a more electable person at the end by having these regional primaries and using mobile voting as a means to, and it wouldn't be exclusive. You could still vote in person, but it would be run by the party. So it's like the opposite of open primaries, but more inclusive. So basically, it would be a nomination process run by the parties, but if they wanted to, they could include all registered voters, right? So and you probably agree that primaries, my mantra for primaries is the government should neither fund nor run partisan political primaries, right? So if the parties want to do it themselves, they can set their own rules. They can standardize it across all states. There's nothing preventing them to doing that, just like they very undemocratically selected Kamala Harris to be their nominee without her winning one primary delegate vote.
Yeah, and I guess I did read the article, and thanks for the summary, though, because it's been a little while. But I suppose one of the benefits as well would be kind of taking away some of the power, the fringy minority within the group that has sort of an outsized influence within the party when you talk about getting better candidates? Kind of what you mean?
Absolutely. And it would be a really bold move for one of the parties to say, hey, we want to be more open and more inclusive. And we want to
Yeah, imagine that.
include we want to include all registered voters in our private primary process. And I just think it would be really just the right thing to do. It would end up, they would probably have a better nominee at the end by allowing all voters in. Because as we know, with closed primaries, it's the most fringe on the right and the left that are selecting the nominees, and it's very few voters, as we saw in the New York primary races recently, because they have closed primaries in New York State, and it does not produce a inclusive nominee.
No. And, a lot of surveys and polls and research done out there showing that a lot of elections are basically determined at the primary level because of basically lack of competition. I'm one of the few people on the internet that I know of. There's me and like one other guy that talk about independent primaries. And it's a different idea for a lot of people, but yeah, that's one of the things that I kind of push as well. But I'm pretty open and non-judgmental when it comes to reforms. I'm just we need as many as possible. So they're all great in my mind, and we should try to do them all. But maybe some better than others. So,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's almost like it's a little bit like capitalism. You have experiments, you have startups,
exactly.
and that's what's great about Arlington, Virginia. We're kind of the incubator for ranked choice voting in Virginia, and we now have all kind of data related to it. We have exit polling, we have demographic data, that type of thing, and a super majority of participants in ranked choice voting like ranked choice voting and want to use it in future elections. So when anybody says people don't like it or it's too hard, they're just making that up. The data does not support those statements.
Right. Yeah. And I've had a few people on my page from Alaska and some other places that are they're good because they've lived through it and it's been a few years now and they can talk about it a little bit. And so they're some of the best advocates and are able to shoot down the talking points pretty well. Do you mind talking a little bit more about veterans for all
All
voters?
voters, right?
Yeah. I've kind of been tracking that group for a while, but I may have reached out once or twice to somebody within the group. I don't talk a little bit about them and what they're doing because I know you were pretty heavily involved.
Yeah, I just love being associated with this group. I've been the Virginia lead for several years now. I'm a Naval Academy graduate, and the founder was a Naval Academy graduate, and the current CEO are Naval Academy graduates, and just a lot of really great people that are involved in really just common sense political reform ideas. So and anything that helps give access to voters. So they've been involved in ranked choice voting and open primaries, but also more recently about joining the amicus brief about the grace periods for mail-in ballots for overseas voters, and
Right.
and that really affects veterans. The current CEO was a voting assistance officer on his submarine. I was a voting assistance officer on my ship, and getting and receiving mail is a real challenge, right? So we got to figure out ways that or active duty military voters can at least access the ballot, and that their ballot will count in the end. And as a majority of veterans self-identify as independents.
Yeah.
So even more than the current Gallup, I think, said 45%, 47% of all Americans self-identify as independents, but veterans are even higher than that. And we obviously have a tradition of nonpartisan service to our
Right.
country, and whoever the president is at the time, it's your job to support and defend the Constitution, no matter who the president is. So we take that oath very seriously. And Veterans for All Voters has a great video campaign where Veterans for All Voters members speaking to the camera and like reciting the oath of office that they took as a officer or enlisted person, and then kind of explaining why it's so important to them and to serve our country and to support and defend the Constitution.
Right. And, it was a good fit for me. I appreciated the fact that as an officer, there was a sense of nonpartisan. I'm just a nonpartisan. I have that mentality, right? And I try to be independent and even-handed and everything like that. I don't like the tribalism and the emotionalism and the polarity. I appreciated that. I liked it. The fact that you're supposed to do your job and it's not a political thing. You're kind of above the fray to a certain degree, and I don't know how much of that is true anymore, but that was a great aspect. I felt at least.
Well, and I have a little quick story about that. I don't know how familiar you are with the Hatch Act, but the Hatch Act prevents, people misinterpret it many times, but basically a federal government employee and by extension, a military person is not supposed to be heavily involved in partisan political activities. And if you're running in a partisan election, and that means any election that could have other partisan, on the ballot. So when I ran for office in 2023, or I'm sorry, 2021, I was still a federal government employee in the intelligence community.
Hmm.
So I had to submit a request to the Hatch Act people, and they sent me back a beautifully written legal document explaining that I'm running as an independent in a nonpartisan election. Therefore, I'm totally legal to do that. Just don't do things like solicit people in the workplace or something like that. And a lot of people think that they're not even allowed to donate to a candidate if they're a federal government employee. And that's incorrect also. So people can participate in the political process as a federal government employee or as a military person, but there are rules, and you just need to know what those rules are and just don't cross those rules. So I always try to educate people, especially here in the Northern Virginia, on what the Hatch Act really means.
Right. It's funny in Arizona. I think we were the first state, or very close to the first state, to do mail-in voting. Basically, we've been doing it for over 30 years, and it's great. And it was a Republican kind of dominated state up until recently, I guess. But early movers in mail-in balloting, and one of the arguments, of course, was sort of the veterans and people who are gone, kind of veteran friendly. And it's weird how things have changed so much in Arizona, kind of a pioneer in these areas, and we're trying to get more people access and able to vote and stuff like that. And now it's kind of 180 degrees where the Republican Party is kind of trying to limit a lot of that now. They've kind of done a reversal, which I thought was kind of weird.
Well, and the barriers to entry, I think the barriers to entry for candidates is the worst. Some of your guests talking about the outrageous requirements for signatures in Arizona. Now, right next door, I think this is a great political innovation in New Mexico. They allow electronic petition signatures. I don't know if you knew that or not. So in order to get on the ballot, so I think that's a great innovation, because there are ways that you can. It's actually more, rather than some signature and some hand printed address that people can't read. If you do it all electronically, it's easier to determine if the person is a registered voter or not.
Yeah.
So I really support that innovation, that you should have reasonable limits, or targets for the number of signatures you need, and I think we should move towards electronic signature gathering. I think that's a good innovation.
Right. We've changed in so many ways, thanks to technology and other aspects. We've updated how we do things. We still do the same things. We just do them a little differently now. But voting, not so much. We're kind of doing it the same way we did it 250 years ago, and it could be updated. There's a group out there called The Future Is Now, and they're trying to get going and kind of connect use technology to connect candidates and voters and stuff like that. Not so much ballot access, but just in every aspect, we can use technology now and to make things so much more efficient and easier. And I don't know, this is a random name for you maybe, but have you heard of a guy called Noah Dyer? I wouldn't really expect you.
No, I don't know that name.
Yeah. Well, he ran for governor of Arizona as an independent about 10 years ago. And the Republican and Democratic candidates had, the requirements like 250 signatures for the major parties in Arizona. He had to get like 47,000. Naturally, he lost. He couldn't get that many signatures in that amount of time. So, top three reforms for you. I'm guessing ranked choice voting and open primaries. Maybe is there another one that kind of sticks out? Is it the one that you mentioned that you wrote about in the article?
I would say that's my top three. So, and I wouldn't even say open primaries. I would say all candidate primaries. The Alaska model, right? So,
Right.
so I think the Alaska model is kind of the way to go, and also much better than the California model with top two. So, ranked choice voting, all candidate primaries, and then for the parties to reform themselves and have these regional primaries with allowing all registered voters to participate, and then also allow electronic voting. So that's all. And that's why my article is a little bit complicated, because I throw in about 4 different reforms into the article. But I want people to chew on it. I want people to think about it and think how undemocratic 2024 was on both the Republican and the Democratic side.
Right. Yeah, and that's the way things are headed, and not good. So, do you want to mention your Substack again? And
Yeah, let me talk about it a little. So, I'll be the first to break it on in public here. I'm resigning from my unfun job as a government contractor and going into semi-retirement. And I really want to get involved in political, independent and forward party political campaigns. So I want to encourage people to reach out to me if they want somebody to help them with their campaigns. I'll start off as a volunteer, but hopefully move into a paid position as a W-2 or a contractor. The website or the Substack is called Independence for America, and that's TS, not CE. So, and we're coming up to Independence Day, which another pun on words there. That I think Independence Day should be dedicated to independent candidates and independent voters. So I'm really all into that, and so I need to get a little bit better about having more podcasts on frequently. But I have 17 up there right now, and then occasionally I'll post an article or kind of a blog post type thing. So, and then the great thing about Substack is then I can make it populate to YouTube and Spotify and things like that. So.
right. Well, that's what it's all about, I think. We just, we can be plugging each other and just helping spread the word. And I know there's some larger organizations out there doing good stuff, and we can support them. But it's also
well, and then all these really good candidates this year too. I mean, Todd Achilles and Seth Bodnar and Osborne and Brian Banks and just a whole bunch of them.
Yeah,
and I think a guy in Colorado, I think too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of them are veterans too, which I really like. So.
Yeah. All right. So, but people out there like you and me and others, fighting the good fight, and we're just going to keep doing that. But Mike, thanks for coming on and having a chat. It was great to meet you.
Hey, great to see you, Chris. And let's keep doing some good.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.